brain just won't quit. Like it's stuck on replaying the same worries over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, I think we've all been there.
Today, we are deep diving into Nick Trenton's Stop Overthinking to help us all like break free from that cycle, you know? Find a little bit of mental peace.
Yeah, it's definitely a quest we can all relate to.
Yeah.
And Trenton really gets it, I think. He starts the book off with this guy named James.
Okay.
Who's totally freaking out about this health issue he's having. And James, he's like, okay, I'm spiraling. Like, I need to stop this. But then he starts overthinking about the fact that he's overthinking.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Talk about a mental trap,
I
right?
know that feeling way too well.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you're stuck in quicksand.
Oh, yeah.
And the more you struggle to get out, the further down you sink.
Totally.
But here's what I found really interesting in the book. And Trenton points out that, like, the subject of our overthinking, you know, whether it's health or work or relationships, it might not actually be like the root of the problem. It's more like a symptom of something deeper going on.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's like that flashing red light on your car's dashboard.
Bro.
Like, the light itself isn't the problem.
Right.
But it's a signal that, you know, something's up.
Yeah.
Something needs attention. In this case, that something is often, you know, like some underlying anxiety.
So then that begs the question, like, why are some of us more prone to this anxiety-driven overthinking than others? Is it just like in our genes or something?
Well, genetics definitely play a role.
Okay.
Yeah, some people are just wired with a more sensitive stress response system. You know, like a car alarm that goes off the slightest little nudge.
Right.
But, you know, our genes are not our destiny.
Okay, so it's not a life sentence to a world of overthinking, thank goodness.
Not at all.
What else influences how our anxiety kind of plays out?
Okay, so think of it this way. Imagine your mind is like a garden. Okay?
Okay.
The soil represents your genetics, right?
Okay.
It provides that foundation. But how that garden actually grows depends on the environment.
Okay.
The carrot receives, you know, and importantly, the gardener's mindset.
I really like that analogy.
Yeah.
So our life experiences, our upbringing, even our current environment can all contribute to how our anxiety garden flourishes or wilts or whatever.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the gardener's mindset, in this case, refers to our mental models.
Okay, hold on. Mental models. Can you break that down for me?
Sure. So imagine your mental model as a pair of glasses that you wear every day.
Okay.
Those glasses filter how you see the world you know, coloring your perceptions and, you know, shaping your reactions.
Okay.
If those glasses are tinted with negativity, you're more likely to perceive threats and, you know, overthink situations.
Right.
But if your glasses are clear, allowing you to see things with more objectivity and balance,
Yeah.
you're less likely to get caught in those anxiety spirals.
So it's not just about like calming down in the moment, it's about understanding those underlying thought patterns that are like fueling the overthinking in the first place.
Exactly. It's like tending to that mental garden, you know, weeding out those unhelpful thought patterns and, you know, cultivating more positive ones.
Yeah.
And Trenton offers a bunch of tools to help us do just that.
Okay.
He starts with the 4 A's of stress management.
The 4 A's. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Think of these as like your stress management toolbox.
Okay.
First, you have avoid.
Okay.
Sometimes the simplest way to reduce stress is to just remove the stressor altogether.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
I used to dread grocery shopping on Saturday mornings.
Oh, yeah.
Because the crowds and the chaos were just like a total overthinking trigger for me.
I feel that.
So I started going on like weekday evenings when it's much quieter, and it made a world of difference.
That's a perfect example of avoid inaction.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, not every stressor can be completely avoided. That's where alter comes in.
Okay.
If you can't eliminate the situation, maybe you can change it, you know, make it less stressful.
Okay.
Like if you have a coworker who constantly interrupts you, causing your mind to spin,
Oh, yeah.
maybe you can like kindly request a designated time to chat or find a quieter workspace to minimize those distractions.
Right. So avoid is about like eliminating the stressor, and alter is about modifying it to reduce its impact.
Exactly.
What about the other 2 A's?
Okay, so the next one is accept,
Okay.
which can be the toughest one for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Especially those prone to overthinking.
Right.
It's not about liking the situation,
Okay.
but acknowledging that, you know, we can't change everything. It's about surrendering to the things that are beyond our control
Yeah.
and, you know, focusing our energy on what we can influence.
Okay.
Trenton even suggests that, like, forgiveness is a form of acceptance because holding on to resentment only keeps us trapped in that cycle of overthinking.
That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes letting go of those negative thoughts and emotions can be like the most liberating thing we can do for ourselves.
Absolutely. And finally, there's adapt.
Okay.
This is about the long game, you know, shifting our mindset, adjusting our expectations,
Okay.
and like building resilience to navigate life's inevitable challenges without getting swept away by overthinking.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're a chronic perfectionist, adapt might involve like reframing those perfectionistic tendencies
Okay.
and embracing a more balanced approach.
So it's about becoming more flexible and adaptable in the face of stress rather than trying to like control every outcome.
Exactly. These 4 A's are a great framework for approaching stress management.
Yeah.
But what about when you're already caught in that overthinking spiral?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do we stop those runaway thoughts in their tracks? Stay tuned, because in part 2, we'll dive into Trenton's techniques for finding instant zen and reclaiming control of our minds in the heat of the moment.
Welcome back. Let's continue our deep dive into how to stop those mental hamster wheels from spinning out of control.
Okay.
Remember that garden analogy we talked about?
Yeah, the mental garden.
Well, even with the best mental models, our anxiety gardens still need tending.
That's so true. And that's where Nick Trenton really shines in Stop Overthinking. He provides a ton of practical tips for that everyday maintenance.
Yeah.
He even emphasizes the importance of habits that might seem totally unrelated to our thoughts.
Yeah, that's what I find so fascinating about this book. He talks about how sleep, food, exercise, and even social media use can either fuel or reduce anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like creating the right environment for those mental flowers to bloom.
Okay, but let's be honest. We all know that getting enough sleep is good for us.
Right.
But sometimes that anxious brain just won't shut off at night.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
So how do we actually put these healthy habits into practice when our brains are working against us?
Well, Trenton is all about small steps and consistency.
Okay.
He calls them micro habits.
Micro habits.
Yeah, think of it like adding a bit of compost to your garden each day.
Yeah.
You know, you're not doing a massive overhaul, just making like gradual improvements that add up over time.
Right.
So instead of scrolling through social media before bed, maybe you spend 5 minutes reading a book or listening to calming music.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about replacing those anxiety-inducing habits with ones that nourish our minds.
Exactly.
And that reminds me of something else Trenton talks about,
Okay.
time management. He argues that feeling rushed and overwhelmed is like planting weeds in that anxiety garden.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we're constantly in a frenzy, it's almost impossible to create space for those healthy habits.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
we need to be intentional about how we spend our time and energy, prioritizing the things that truly matter, and setting boundaries to protect our peace.
And he doesn't just say like manage your time better.
Right.
He gives us specific techniques.
Yeah, he does.
He talks about Allen's input processing technique, which is all about capturing and organizing those to-dos that can just like clutter our minds.
Right.
And then there's Eisenhower's method for
Okay.
prioritizing tasks based on urgency and importance.
Yeah, these methods help us streamline our workflow, minimize those distractions that can lead to overthinking spirals.
Yeah.
It's about creating a sense of order and control in our lives, which can be incredibly calming.
And speaking of control,
Okay.
he also talks about the importance of setting SMART goals.
SMART goals.
Yeah.
I love those.
They need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Yes.
It's about turning those vague intentions into clear, actionable steps.
Exactly. So instead of saying like, I want to be less stressed, a SMART goal would be something like, I'm going to practice the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique for 5 minutes every morning before work this week.
Oh, that's a great reminder. We haven't even gotten into those techniques for finding instant zen in the moment.
Yeah, you're right.
The ones we promised our listeners.
Let's dive into those. One that Trenton highlights is autogenic training.
Autogenic training.
Have you heard of it?
I haven't. Fill me in.
Okay, so it's kind of like a self-guided meditation
Okay.
that uses visualization, focused attention, and breathing exercises to induce a state of deep relaxation. It's about tapping into your body's natural relaxation response.
Okay.
Kind of like hitting the pause button on your anxiety.
So we're essentially calming our minds by calming our bodies.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
that makes sense. How does it work? Exactly.
Okay, so Trenton outlines like 6 stages, each focusing on a different physical sensation.
Okay.
You start by bringing awareness to heaviness in your limbs, then warmth,
Yeah.
then a calm heartbeat.
Okay.
It's like gently guiding your body into a state of tranquility.
Sounds very zen, and I bet the more you practice, the easier it becomes to access that relaxed state.
Exactly like building a muscle for chill.
I love it. And speaking of calming mental imagery, Trenton also talks about the power of visualization or guided imagery. This is where you use your imagination to create a peaceful scene in your mind. Like a beach, a forest, a cozy cabin, whatever brings you a sense of peace.
Exactly. And the key is to engage all of your senses.
Oh.
You're not just seeing the scene, you're also hearing the sounds, feeling the breeze on your skin, smelling the salty air.
Okay.
The more vivid the image, the more immersive and effective it becomes.
It's like tricking your brain into thinking you're actually there,
Yeah.
and that in turn helps to calm your nervous system.
Exactly.
Pretty genius.
It is.
What other instant zen techniques does Trenton have up his sleeve?
Well, he also talks about progressive muscle relaxation, which you might be familiar with.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this one.
Yeah, it's where you systematically tense and then release different muscle groups in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great way to become more aware of where you're holding tension and consciously let go of that physical stress, which often goes hand in hand with overthinking.
Right. You start with your toes, clenching them tightly for a few seconds, then fully releasing and moving up through your body, muscle group by muscle group.
It's like giving yourself a mental and physical reset.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something else Trenton emphasizes, the mind-body connection.
Oh, yeah.
Our thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations are all interconnected.
Right.
So by calming one, we can influence the others.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
He talks about how overthinking can create this like vicious cycle. You know, the more we worry, the more tense our bodies become, which in turn fuels more anxious thoughts.
Yeah.
Techniques like progressive muscle relaxation can help break that cycle,
Okay.
create a more positive feedback loop.
So we've got the 4 A's for managing stress, micro habits for creating the right mental environment.
Right.
And now these instant zen techniques for calming the mind and body in the moment.
Exactly.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into taming that overthinking mind. We've explored all sorts of stress management techniques, healthy habits, and even some instant Zen tricks. But what about those just like pesky thought patterns?
Oh, yeah.
That keep popping up like stubborn weeds in our mental gardens.
Oh, those are the tough ones.
Yeah, how do we tackle those?
That's where we get into like the really powerful stuff.
Okay.
Cognitive restructuring. Think of it as weeding out those deeply ingrained negative thought patterns
Okay.
and planting more positive ones in their place.
Okay. I'm ready to get my hands dirty, but how do we actually restructure our thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a pretty heavy mental workout.
Yeah.
It's a process for sure.
Okay.
But Nick Trenton breaks it down so beautifully in Stop Overthinking.
Oh.
He starts with something he calls ANTs.
ANTs.
Yeah, automatic negative thoughts.
Oh, okay.
They're those thoughts that just pop into our heads without us even realizing it. Like, I'm not good enough, or I'm going to mess this up.
I love that analogy. It's so true. Those ANTs can really infest our minds and create a whole colony of anxiety.
Exactly. And like the first step is simply becoming aware of them.
Okay.
You know, once you start noticing those ANTs, you can begin to challenge their validity.
Okay.
Like, are they actually based on facts? Or just your fears and assumptions?
He talks about like common thinking traps.
Yeah.
Those cognitive distortions that can keep us stuck in overthinking.
Exactly.
Like all or nothing thinking, where we see things in black and white, or overgeneralization, where we take one negative event and apply it to our whole lives.
And then there's catastrophizing.
Oh, yeah.
Where we imagine the worst case scenario,
Right.
convince ourselves it's inevitable.
Like it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, and by recognizing these distortions, we can start to like disentangle ourselves from their grip.
Okay.
It's like shining a light on those mental cobwebs and watching them dissolve.
So if I catch myself thinking like, ugh, I always mess things up,
Yeah.
I can challenge that thought by asking myself, is that really true? Are there times when I've succeeded? Like, what evidence do I actually have to support this thought?
Exactly. You become like a detective of your own mind,
I like that.
gathering evidence to create a more balanced and realistic perspective.
So it's about questioning those automatic thoughts instead of just accepting them as true.
Right.
But what happens once we've challenged those negative thoughts? What do we put in their place?
That's where self-scripting comes in.
Okay.
Creating a new, more empowering way of talking to ourselves. Imagine you have like this little voice inside your head that's constantly criticizing you,
Oh,
putting you down and predicting doom and gloom.
yeah.
Self-scripting is about rewriting that script,
Okay.
replacing those harsh words with messages of kindness, support, and encouragement.
So instead of saying like, ugh, I'm such a failure, I might say, okay, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it and do better next time.
Exactly. It's about shifting from self-criticism to self-compassion. Remember, we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And we deserve to treat ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a friend.
This is all so powerful, but I have to admit, it sounds like a lot of work.
I hear you.
Like, rewiring those deep-seated thought patterns can feel kind of daunting.
It does take effort and practice for sure, but it's so worth it.
Okay.
Trenton reminds us that like our brains are incredibly adaptable. And with consistent effort, we can create new neural pathways that support a calmer, more peaceful mind.
Right. It's like creating a well-worn path through that mental garden, leading you straight to the peace and clarity you're seeking.
Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't just leave us hanging.
Okay.
He actually provides a tool called the dysfunctional thought record,
Okay.
which helps us systematically identify challenge and replace those negative thoughts. It's like a journal for rewiring our thinking.
And Trenton also emphasizes the importance of self-compassion throughout this process.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're not going to be perfect at this right away, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Remember those micro habits?
Yeah.
Apply that same principle here.
Okay.
Small, consistent steps in the right direction will eventually lead to big changes.
So if we catch ourselves slipping back into old patterns, we don't beat ourselves up about it.
No, not at all.
We just acknowledge it gently, redirect our thinking, and keep practicing.
Exactly.
Progress over perfection, right?
Absolutely. And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, there are therapists, coaches, and support groups that can provide guidance and encouragement along the way.
Yeah.
Reaching out for support is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Well, this has been an incredible journey through Stop Overthinking.
It really has.
We've covered a wealth of strategies for understanding, managing, and ultimately overcoming this common mental struggle.
Yeah. We've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something Trenton mentions that I think is really key.
Okay.
The importance of focusing on our needs, not just our wants.
That's such a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
When we're caught in the grip of overthinking, it's so easy to get lost in a whirlwind of what ifs and shoulds,
Yeah.
constantly striving for some elusive ideal.
Yeah.
But when we shift our focus to our fundamental needs for connection, purpose, meaning, and well-being, it can create a sense of grounding and clarity.
It's about recognizing that our worthiness isn't dependent on achieving some external measure of success or perfection.
Right.
It's about prioritizing self-care, setting healthy boundaries, and creating a life that aligns with our values
Yeah.
and brings us genuine joy.
Beautifully said. And when we're living in alignment with our needs, it creates a foundation of peace and stability that can help us weather the inevitable storms of overthinking.
It's like building a strong and resilient garden that can withstand any weather.
I love that.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and practical tools to reclaim your mental peace.
Yeah, I think it has.
Remember, you have the power to change your thinking.
You do.
And in doing so, you can transform your entire experience of life.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing.